agus fáilte blá ormh go trí seascad. In programm BBC ALBA dul go críos scíalach na bhoireannaich iongantach and is sùil spórs na Halba. Is mis Iona Ballantyne agus ha bhí toirt ra go bhfuil Debbi McCulloch in coachse boran an SWPLahen Colrooms in studio. Ar y programm noch coiti sin arás gheamach in deireadh sheachdain an SWPLahen. Cluinnidh siad manaidsear boireannaich agus clann-nighean Rangers Jasmin Paris siad the sùil cluinnidh Glasgow City lana sapid. Cluinnidh siad cúteach fó Jasmin Paris a chéad boireannaich a bhuainnig in Spain race in generation as stiùidio an till. Debbi, welcome to 360.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you on. And I guess, can you just tell us about your career in football and how you actually then got into coaching?
Sure, it started fairly early on, just kicking the ball about at school. At primary school, girls weren't allowed to play football, unfortunately. I remember in primary 7 playing with the boys at lunchtime and scoring my first ever goal, and actually getting sent to the head teacher's office for it. Thankfully, when I moved to secondary school, girls were allowed to play football, and I just really developed a huge passion for the game, and also being involved in team sport. You know, I played rugby, I played volleyball, enjoyed badminton as well, so I was very, very active as a young child. But unfortunately, when I left school, I didn't really have the grades to get into university, so I went to college, Glasgow College of Nautical Studies, and studied sports coaching there for 2 years, and led on to going to Abertay University to get an honours degree in sports development and sports coaching. And as most people, when they leave university, you don't have any job opportunities, but thankfully I did get a job opportunity at Dundee United, and then worked at Ross County for 5 years, and that was really mostly coaching younger children. And thankfully, through my work with women's football and SWF, I was headhunted by Spartans, which gave me a blank canvas. And at the time, Shelley Kerr was head coach of the women's team there and didn't have an assistant, and I knew Shelley really well. We were good friends, and I got involved with coaching adult footballers, and since then I've been involved in the SWPL1 team at Spartans, and I've enjoyed every single minute of the last 12 years.
Well, at 12 years, I mean, that's a long time. What has happened in those 12 years?
A lot. Yes, a huge development. You know, I think when Anna Signal and Helene Graham came into Scottish women's football, it changed the game. There was so much more pressure put on the clubs to train more, be more professional, get the best out of your players, develop the coaches by taking them to different countries. So I've seen the game grow massively, and huge changes around, you know, training, but also match days, social media, and the coverage of the game. And it's all been extremely positive, and continues to definitely go in the right direction.
And when you hear from players who play for Spartans just now, they love the club. They love everything about it. I mean, what does it mean to you?
Everything. It's like a second family to me. My partner would probably say I love it too much, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, they gave me an opportunity, the academy, for my full-time role there 12 years ago, and they've really invested in me on and off the pitch, and I'm forever grateful for that, for them. So, and everybody that's helped and supported it, and you know, there is a real family atmosphere there, and a real togetherness, and to be part of something like that, that is, you know, your work, but also football at the highest level in Scotland, and women's football, it's an honour to be involved in.
And Spartans as a club, you also do so much for the community, and a lot of stuff that changes a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, the academy is the heart and soul of the football club. We're all kind of 3 separate entities: the football club, the youth section, and the academy. And we run the facility, but we also do a lot of social impact work within North Edinburgh. And you know, that is always driven by what the community needs, and is our sole focus on a day-to-day basis, to give young people the opportunities that they might not get elsewhere, and to support them in school or in further education, or even just via our youth work programs that we run on a weekly basis. So we've created a social village at Spartans, we like to call it that, where people can come from all walks of life, not be judged, play football, do whatever they want, but also develop skills that might give them better opportunities.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Debbi. Chloig skip Spartans Debbi Glasgow City an deireadh sa chai a chaburing haibh stat a chur skip Scott Booth a hasún gemachal san league in season sa. An tal hasú a harsha rash a game sin agus gemachin Iona Ballantyne McDonald sa chai. Debbi, where do we even start with this weekend? Because you think you can predict scores and then this happens.
Yeah, strange weekend of results. I don't get to look at my phone until around about 4:30, 4:45, and when I refreshed my Twitter feed on Sunday I was slightly surprised by some of the results. But good to see that it's competitive and that it's close in the majority of games.
What about Glasgow City this season? Do you think they can remain in top spot?
Yeah, I think they can. I think they'll have stiffer competition than they've ever had. But I certainly think they do have a team that has good quality and a good amount of depth within it. Although I think it will be a tougher challenge than what they have faced in previous seasons. How
do you feel like Spartans did against Glasgow City on Sunday?
I think we did really well. You didn't see there in the clip, but you know, in the first 15-20 minutes we had 3 glorious opportunities, which we should have probably taken at least 2 out of the 3. And I think that potentially would have been a different game, but you know, you allow City time on the ball and space to be able to play, they'll always punish you. And you know, the penalty obviously settled them down a wee bit, and they scored another one just before half time. And I asked our girls just to do something meaningful at half time, and they did, you know, but then again we score an OG 5 minutes later. So So yeah, I was very, very proud. I felt that, you know, we played well, we competed well with Glasgow City, we had a strong game plan, and the players followed that throughout. What
would you take from that game going into this weekend?
A lot of positives. I think, you know, our defending is very solid right now. I think our attacking play is developing. We're getting more players involved in the game and in the final third. So, you know, we play Hearts obviously on Sunday, and we'll go into that game with a real kind of confidence and positive mindset.
Well, Hearts are coming into that game just off the back of a win against Hibs. Were you shocked or surprised at that result?
I'm never really shocked or surprised. I think anyone can take points off of anyone in this league. But certainly with the defeats that Hearts had suffered prior to playing Hibs on Sunday, yeah, I was slightly surprised. But you know, it's you get one chance in football, and if you take it and you defend well for the rest of the time, then you've got every opportunity to be able to take 3 points in this league.
In terms of Hibernian, I mean, what happens now this season? That's 4 defeats in a row.
I think they've got to reflect, take a step back, not try and be emotional about it. Put the past to one side and focus on, you know, a tough game that they've got ahead against Forfar Farmington on Sunday at Spartans. You know, Forfar are a very kind of stuffy team and very difficult to break down, and have players that can punish you, especially on the break and from set pieces. So, you know, that's not a given either. But I would just say to Hibs to focus on themselves and really try to work hard on the training pitch to resolve the issues that they're currently facing, and I'm fairly certain that they'll turn their results around.
Well, I mean, for Forfar Farmington on Sunday, 2-2 against Celtic. What did you make of that result?
Yeah, I mean, again, not particularly surprised. Celtic obviously have an extremely strong midfield and probably have the greatest attacking power in their front three, in my opinion, in the league. Forfar, again, have taken their chances and taken them very, very well. With their striker obviously scoring in the counter-attack, and then Donna Patterson's scoring a set piece, which she's becoming extremely famous for this season. So Celtic have done brilliant to, you know, come back in the final kind of 5-6 minutes of that game to secure a point. But again, it just goes back to what I said previously. Anyone can take points off of anyone, it seems.
But then it was a big win for Rangers, 9-0 against Motherwell. Kirsty Howitt scoring a hat-trick on her debut. What did you think about that?
Yeah, obviously the 3 players have left Glasgow City earlier kind of last week, and I think that will strengthen Rangers. There's no doubt about that. We've played Rangers once in pre-season and once in the league, and you know, in my opinion, there was maybe a few pieces missing from the jigsaw, and those 3 players will certainly, and have done just by what we've watched and seen, strengthened Rangers dramatically. So it'll be interesting to see how they fit in. It'll be interesting to see how the squad competes, because it is quite a big squad that Rangers have, and if they can keep everybody happy. But certainly if you're winning 9-0, it's much easier to keep people happy.
And a big game this weekend against Glasgow City for them too.
It'll be interesting. I think you know, it'll be like a game of chess, and a lot to play for in that fixture, even though we've still got 2 rounds of fixtures to come, you know, after the new year. I think if Rangers can get the win, then that could put them in a strong position. However, Glasgow City aren't there to be rolled over. They will know the players very well that have moved there. They'll know their weaknesses, and they'll also know a lot of the players at Rangers. So yeah, if I had to call it, I would probably say that a draw would be maybe favourable for both sides.
Great, well, we will see what happens on Sunday. Ha Amy Nichol hier morgen zijn Unie kijk Rangers. Historisch zijn drasli leen verfashion te nog zo'n skippen en ban. Als je naar wie Brunry Amy hoshak again maken in Glasgow City, Fesker na Sapich.
We're really fortunate at the club to have had huge support in there, and the integration from the board to be able to be at the football department and be at the heart of the club. They're always kind of pushing us to be better, and we know that we can, and that won't stop. I don't think that's the way that the club wants to be, and it is relentless in its pursuit for success.
Háis ich éimi na dríach gúr mar manaidsear bhoireannaich is clann-nighean ag Rangers, och mías an díochadash. Ach, sound for realchan COVID-19 a haid vi goprachug is on leg in Unishin.
Our real focus has been about relationships, because it was such a new staff team and a new team that came together. how we continued to develop that throughout the last 9 months, and really adapting in so many different ways at the training centre. And the women's team has got a doctor, Victoria Campbell, and then we've also got access to other doctors on site, so it means that we're just quite fluid in our approach. For my current role as well, it means that scouting and recruitment's been mainly through video and different things, and having to meet players has been done through Zoom, and loads of aspects of the role have been probably quite different in these exceptional circumstances, but I would say that we're really fortunate to have the support and the backing that we do from the club to make that possible.
Nu de go Prìomh Rangers skippen ban a stiachan club. Deireadh Amy son bhí na toscrúg an image, everyone, anyone. Uchudítead vóg, ag an námsin.
I think it's huge. I think that it was something that at the time, again, it was kind of unexpected from me. It was something that was quite kind of new, and I thought, you know, there's a real selling point to that given the history of the club, and I think that Scotland's a real diverse country. It's something the women's team feel really strongly about, given obviously, you know, gender issues, but even down to sexuality and different ethnicities. And obviously we've got Bala in us now, and it really kind of opens your eyes and gives you an awareness to some of the battles and struggles that other people have faced in countries to be able to have success within the sport. And I think that kind of gives us more empowerment and makes us want to continue to push. From a personal point of view, I've just got a real sense of pride being involved in that and being asked to be an ambassador for that, because I think that it's important for me and my capacity to showcase that females can have a positive impact on sport, whether that be on or off the pitch.
Hadis na blínigin magédig. An an alpa hana hadavan je voddanich ruchtjichtje ant na driechen leis an innive asaartje is an operas kutrimiche eith vas an na daghuch an na balkoshen en baan agus fair.
We have quite a diverse staff team at Rangers. It shows the benefit of men and women working together to be able to give different perspectives and voice opinions, and I think having women at the forefront of that and recognising the benefit of us all working together to achieve can only stand the full women's game, but women in general in a better stead moving forward to go again and show young girls, you know what, you can be CEO, you can be chief exec of a male club, you can work in a female club, you can go and be a lawyer, you can do whatever you want to do. And it's really important for us that we continue to bring the people through and we have a voice. I seen the interview with Emma Hunter as well, and I think that's just like such an inspirational story, and Emma, what she's achieved in Aberdeen and stuff as well is huge for the women's game. And Debbie's just tenacious and, you know, is the kind of stalwart of the women's game. I think she's been the longest standing coach in the SWPL. So, and it's important that we support the people to continue their roles and show young girls that you've got an opportunity.
As shewyd the Rangers pwying yn y hwcal yn ei Hibernian, agus yn brisiog dŵl as shewyd I cael to Celtic, ha nawgwl yn môr y tîn Tródómhnallach, nu the haid y tyl iddyn skipper y fwnig y league yn Glasgow City.
We need to kind of keep our feet on the ground, because Glasgow City deserve respect, because they've been consistent winners for so long now, and they've done that through sheer hard work and effort and energy and pulling together. And I don't think, you know, we're not sitting thinking it's going to be easy or anything like that. We know that we've still got a long distance to go and that we have to still be relentless in that pursuit for success. So for this Sunday's game, absolutely it will be competitive, but is it going to be defining? I'm not sure, because I think everyone's capable of kind of throwing up a result that is going to surprise people this year. Our main focus is to continue to build key relationships and understanding with players and the staff and everyone around about that, and be able to now hopefully kind of settle down a bit and get consistency of games and the league continuing to go forward, which we know we're really fortunate of as well that we are at this point still playing. So exciting, but I would say it's exciting for everyone that's involved or has watched Scottish women's football for so many years, because it's definitely going to be a tight race this year and competitive from top to bottom.
Debbi, Amy is somebody who has dedicated so much to the women's game and really kind of kept things ticking over the years as well.
Yeah, hugely passionate about the women's game in Scotland, and also developing players, and you can see that in the video clip. It's a very honest approach from Amy, but it's always to make sure that she gets the best out of who she's working with or who she's coaching. And as she said, it's really important to have people like her in the women's game who young girls can aspire to be.
I get, is there a lot in there that you kind of relate to? I mean, even at the start when she was talking about challenges with COVID, how has that affected you?
Yeah, it's affected everybody, and I can relate to it. Me and Amy speak quite regularly on the phone, and have done, especially over like the last kind of 6 months. With regards to COVID and operational and logistical things that both clubs are maybe doing, and I think it's been a very humble experience, but it's been also unenjoyable at the same time, in terms of, you know, increased workload and having to upskill volunteers or staff that might not necessarily have asked them to do the job that they were doing pre-COVID. So it has been really challenging. But it also has brought everybody a lot closer together, which I think can only be good for teams across Scotland.
Amy also made some really important and interesting points about women in sport. Do you resonate with what she was saying?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important that young players have inspiring role models. I think that without them, you know, players and coaches aren't able to see what they could potentially be. And, you know, I'd always promote the fact, and especially within our own club, that we have kind of female coaches there. The male coaches are just as important, don't get me wrong. But I think, like, for young girls, if they can work with female coaches or female staff, it can provide a more inspiring environment for them.
And a club like Rangers, they've invested so much into their team this season alongside the likes of Celtic. As a coach, are you feeling that difference when you're playing them on the pitch?
I think so, but you just have to worry about yourself, you know. I think the other flip side of the coin is the amount of pressure that's on them, and the expectations that their board or board of trustees has of, like, the teams that they are heavily investing in. They will want a return for that investment. Now at Spartans we have high expectations and ambitions, but it's a different kind of pressure, and I think, you know, it'll be interesting to see how people cope with that pressure, because certainly this is the first season that we're witnessing it in a different kind of way.
Would you want to push things along at Spartans, and do you aspire to be a full-time professional team?
Absolutely. You know, we recognise that within the men's and women's team that we can't stand still and that we have to move forward, and we are going through the process right now of changing from a voting members club to a shareholder club, and that was launched a couple of weeks ago to try and generate further interest and investment within our club. And the response has been remarkable, because we understand that the teams that are coming up from the leagues below aren't the teams that would necessarily be at that level before. You know, at lone league level you're talking about Bonnyrigg and Bo'ness coming into that league. At our league we're talking about, you know, Aberdeen potentially, Dundee United, Hamilton. So we can't stand still, we've got to move forward with it, and we've been working very, very hard to make sure that we can have additional finance in place to be able to invest in our lone league team, but also our SWPL team, which will hopefully mean that players will be invested in and secured for Spartans.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Nuair a bhuaigh Jasmin Paris a hana mahar vet agus allanach PhD in spine race hanaki go arasil rui. Be Jasmin a chéad fallanach a bhuaigh in race agus huki dusan ura híche fara nuair a biari of roye. Agus gaich ger sinna genu sa canenam a stat gus bani horsh gan lenne veiche. As she nervi bruni Jasmin mun vlina iongantach a hervi eiche.
once I was sort of standing on the start line, I was pretty excited to get going and get racing. My biggest sort of concern at that point, the thing I was most nervous about was leaving my daughter. I'd only ever really been away from her for a night before, so that was kind of the mental aspect was probably the thing that I was most worried about. In terms of the race, I was excited to see how I could do. I'd put in quite a lot of training. I knew I was physically well prepared for it. I also felt I was probably well prepared for the sleep deprivation because my daughter didn't really sleep very well. So I thought I could challenge the leaders and maybe even aim to try and win. But I was excited to get racing and give it a go.
Bhuaigh Jasmin an rééis Spain an san úine as luaí dhéobh, chuigúd an díoch is thoiseach iad an coapaseach san darna.
When I sort of was thinking about what time I might be able to do, it's kind of a difficult thing in that race because it's so dependent, the speed you travel at is so dependent on weather conditions, and so really I was just aiming to try and finish as fast as I could and see what the weather threw at me.
Chanán díadach go ring Jasmin a grách iad a rééis an 8-3 údan. Fa fé mai go baine thar seachar de lenmh iad an dlí a cúteach.
Well, I guess at the time it was just kind of a necessity. I was breastfeeding and I knew that I needed to express, otherwise I would end up with mastitis, and I just I did it. It took a bit of time during the first checkpoint and I lost a bit of time, but after that it was pretty quick. I guess because my milk production had dropped. Looking back, it's more that I sort of feel that it was good that I did it, that it sort of highlighted the issue of, it highlighted breastfeeding being kind of natural and normal and being part of our everyday lives as women with children, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I was able to kind of bring it and have people talking about it afterwards. I think that's a good thing.
An an rééis uamhas a chéin cruai, a Jasmin a crutchin go bhfuil nearst inching ceas có cútramach na nearst physicach.
I think that's a huge part. I think you really can't underestimate the importance of the mental aspect of running ultra races. And that's probably, I think, part of the reason that women seem to do well relatively to men in these events, just because it's a lot of it is mental. So not only kind of the aspect of just being able to keep going when things get tough, but also looking after yourself. So in a race where you have to navigate and you have to keep yourself fed, and you're running when you're very tired, I think it's really important that you do look after yourself, because ultimately if you get too cold then get hypothermic, then you drop out. So I think the mental aspect's really, really big.
Han suddervis like Jasmin it anichug internationte a horsí.
I think for me it was quite overwhelming, really. But I think I sort of tried to embrace it from the point of view of so many people got in touch to say they'd been inspired by my story. Ordinary people, ordinary, I feel ordinary myself. So that's what, I guess, maybe sort of my story resonated with people because I was, a breastfeeding mum. I work full time and so it was just sort of showing that you could still do these things if you really sort of put your mind to it and believe in yourself. Because I don't feel like I'm a particularly special athlete. I just think I'm sort of good at keeping going when things get tough and when putting my mind to something and believing in myself. So I think that I think everybody could do incredible things if they believe in themselves. Yeah.
A Iona na suddervis a dúliat is an iongantach iad nachgach san spárs to Jasmin.
Yeah, so I think in some ways I was very fortunate. I came into sort of the fell running scene after a lot of that groundwork had been done. I'm under no illusions that it wasn't always kind of equal, but by the time I sort of started seriously fell running, it felt quite equal. We felt very welcome. There was I can still think of some races where there was, for example, a trophy for the first man and a trophy for the second man and not a trophy for the first woman. And I made my feelings about that quite clear. Especially as that particular race, I finished third overall that time. So there's still work to be done. In general, I think there's been real improvements. For example, the sky races and so on. There's a real sort of push to make everything kind of equal in terms of because in terms of prize money, but there are still some races, and I can think of one in particular that received some coverage and had a lot of negative feedback from women that were asked to join the race, including myself, where they were offering much lower prize money for the women and a shorter course over multiple days. You know, we argued that in ultra races, women can just run just as far as the men, and there's no reason to offer for lower prize money. Their argument was there's fewer women in the sport, so there should be, you know, and I don't agree with that, because you'll never get more women in the sport if you don't offer equal treatment. And there are still some ways to go in terms of, for example, there are some sort of well-known races that still don't offer kind of any help for women that, for example, are pregnant. So there's some races quite hard to get into, you might get a place, but then if you get pregnant, then you lose that place, for example, rather than being able to defer it. They also don't have any sort of allowance for you if you get pregnant, in terms of the number of years that you can accumulate sort of these races that require, you know, that help you get an entry. They don't make any sort of allowances if you're pregnant for a year, for example. So there is still some way to go, because I think that women that are sort of of an age where they'll be competing are also frequently of an age where they'll be having children. And from personal experience, I have to say that it makes it hard enough taking a year out to have a baby, but if you then also have to deal with the fact that you've lost your various entry points for races because you were off a year, and that's an added challenge. So I think there's still a long way to go, but there's definitely been improvements in the time that I've been racing.
Hadda siad a glasach, han teilech Jasmin Paris, agus I dola cumulora array, called the Bidh hewlich.
So I had my son 4 months ago exactly, so yeah, and I'm sort of getting back into training again now, which is really fun. What happens next year is obviously very dependent on what happens with coronavirus and the vaccine and so on, and whether races take place. If they do, then I definitely have some plans for some kind of racing in the UK and to some extent at least one or two races abroad. And if coronavirus just kind of put a stop to those things, then there's been quite an increase in the number of fastest known time sort of record attempts this year on the kind of ultra running scene in the UK, and I think abroad as well, simply because that's something that people can still do when their you know, races have been cancelled. So there's various sort of record attempts in the British mountains that I would quite like to have a go at. So if racing is called off, then I'll do that next year if I can.
Debbi, a very inspiring story, and it does just go to show that if you put your mind to something, you can do it.
Hugely inspirational. I had to close my mouth there while I was watching that. Yeah, mindset of a warrior there. Hugely demanding physically and mentally, and what an achievement, amazing.
And it's also quite amazing that as a woman, what she's done within the sport for more women then coming in after her.
Yeah, fantastic role model again there, and just being able to prove people wrong as well, and obviously speaks a lot about equality there too, and I think that's so important in female sport, and whatever club or sport you play for, that there is that equality across the board, whether it's, you know, using the same changing facilities or having peak training times that are similar to, you know, the male counterparts, and just having that togetherness and making sure that the platform is as equal as it can possibly be.
And I mean, with Jasmin personally, I mean, I am not a mother, but I can fully appreciate that when she's doing that race and she's got a young baby at home, she has to stop and express her milk. Do you think we fully appreciate what female athletes put their bodies through and what they can achieve?
I don't think we do, but I think there's a lot more research and a lot more time and resources going into that. You know, I can only speak for us at Spartans, and at the start of this year we introduced a kind of monitoring programs for our players, whether it was around their menstrual cycle, their sleep quality, them recording their RPE for every single session, so that we could adapt their training load with regards to how they were feeling. Because I think we have to take that into a lot more consideration now, because everyone has a different map of the world. You have to be understanding and compromise in certain areas. At Spartans, we have two players that have young children, you know, Bobby and Alana, and we have to understand that situation and support them as best we possibly can. So I think a lot more has to be done in that respect, and a lot more should be done. But I do think that we are taking positive steps forward to be able to support females around about what their circumstances are, whether it's on or off the pitch.
How did your players react to that? Was it a positive reaction from tracking these things?
I think they didn't particularly want another form to fill in, if I'm being honest. But we wanted to do a lot more research around it and have a greater understanding because of the kind of link between ACL injuries and obviously menstrual cycles. We'd had quite a few ACL injuries, and we wanted to monitor and see if we could affect the training loads of the players, because, you know, as a female you feel different at different times of the month, and you have to really kind of understand that and get underneath the layers to be able to try and get the best out of your performance on the pitch. So the players, yes, after the first few weeks I think they could see the benefits of it, certainly. Obviously COVID stopped us in the tracks of that, and obviously we're outside now a lot more too, so it's not as easy to undertake, but it's certainly something that we will be pushing for going forward to ensure that we have the players' welfare at the front of our minds.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Well, sin air son program eile, ma hang fordó Debbi son bhí colrúm san studio. Fit sibh lentil gach seachcin ar YouTube, mar sin jan cín seachcin ísef go bhfuil a cortabhríomh gan bhí sibh lentil agus nach calciú program san Bidh. Cynnig a gresio an program acibse, mar sin sgilbhanach fat is farsing agus cymwyd a coirt. Bydach chi spors fod noch na halbe, mar sin leif yn dras.